You know, as I look back at some of the mega arcs or some of the more I wouldn't say outlandish, but more ambitious arcs that, Ian Flynn has ever been part of when it came, to the Sonic comic, whether it was under the Archie license or currently under the IDW license. And I've talked about this before, but when I look at some of these arcs and how ambitious and elaborate and gargantuan that they were, I look at the fact that there was a lot of opportunities that were missed to really, up the ante, more so than what they already were. One of them, for example, was the Worlds Collide arc, the first Mega Man and Sonic crossover that they did after 247, thanks to the second Super Genesis wave that both Dr. Eggman and Dr. Wily had basically concocted, if you will, into reality. And basically, behind the scenes wise, it was Archie and Sega's way, and along with Ian Flynn, it was their own way of getting around the whole lawsuit with Ken Penders and getting certain characters and story arcs and all that, out of the equation. But be that as it may, basically there was a lot that they could have done with this story arc, like I said. And one of the main things that they could have done, because you already had things be very intriguing and very, up the ante, if you will, when you pretty much, I guess, get the okay from Sega themselves, or even not with the okay, or whatever the case is, to basically roboticize a lot of their characters, a lot of the main game characters, from Tails to Amy to Shadow to Blaze to Silver to Rouge to the Chaotix. The fact that you were able to get that to happen, to get permission, to get the okay, or maybe not, I don't know. That was a surprising move in its own right to really, like I said, up the stakes in the story arc. But to me, if there's one thing they could have done to really up the ante, in many, many ways, if you will, is to do the one thing I've always talked about, and I stand by, looking back at this crossover, that I really think could have made things a lot more intriguing, more intense, and more almost like tension-wise, especially between Sonic and Mega Man. Because one of the things that happens towards the end of the story arc, or at least towards the end of the Roboticized Masters portion of the arc, is Eggman and Wily program what's left of Sonic's friends to they program them to basically self-destruct. In other words, they put a timer on them to basically self-destruct when the moment is right, basically blow up, if you will. And thankfully, Sonic and Mega Man are able to save them and restore them to normal before that even happens. But again, the point I'm getting at is they could have done a lot more. They could have done a lot more with these characters. And the one thing I've always stood by them doing is they could have added, because again, you want to really put tension between the characters of Sonic and Mega Man. Whether or not they can coexist together, they can work together, not only to save Sonic's friends, but to defeat both Doctors. I think that one of the things they could have done, with the exception of maybe Tails and Rouge and maybe another character here and there, what they could have done is they could have taken the roboticized masters that they had, like Amy, like Knuckles, like, Shadow, like the Chaotix, like Silver and Blaze, and they could have easily said, you know what, in story, they could have easily had the Doctor say, you know what, let's up the ante. Let's really make Sonic and Mega Man make a choice. Let's divide them. Let's put a real division between them. And the way they could have done that is by basically initiating, a merger sequence. Yeah, a merger sequence. In other words, basically instead of just, self-destruct, you could have had them say, activate merger and self-destruct. In other words, have the characters merge together, the ones that still were roboticized masters, like Amy, Knuckles, Shadow, Blaze, Silver, maybe the Chaotix. Have them merge together into one big giant robot master. Where maybe you have, Amy's an arm, Blaze is an arm, Silver the leg, Knuckles is a leg, the Chaotix are like part of the body, and, Shadow's the head or whatever. And basically, it combines all the functions as a roboticized master. It's like, Amy being an arm and everything, she can have her head retract, and basically out comes a hammer, or she can open up her mouth, like, out comes a hammer, and Blaze could open up her mouth, and out comes like a cannon for flame or something like that. Whatever the case is, would be in that kind of scenario. But basically, what I'm getting at is that is an opportunity that to me could have really helped in story make it a lot more intriguing, interesting, and more tension-filled for a lot of the characters, mostly like Sonic and Mega Man, because now, you have Sonic and Mega Man, mostly Sonic, basically wondering what is he going to do, because now his friends have merged together into this huge roboticized master, and he still wants to save him, but Mega Man is making some kind of sense like the only way you could probably save him is to destroy them. It creates, and Sonic doesn't want to do that. It creates great tension. Even if you have Tails involved after he's been de-roboticized, it creates great tension because it's like, you have Sonic wanting to do one thing and Mega Man saying you got to do this if you want to do that. So, to me, missing out on that opportunity of merging what was left of the roboticized masters from Amy, Knuckles, Shadow, Silver, Blaze, what else? And maybe even the Chaotix, like I said, I think is a missed opportunity. I think it was a missed opportunity to really raise the stakes and make things a little bit more tension-filled in the story, and mostly among Sonic and Mega Man, because, Sonic wants to do one thing because he doesn't want to hurt his friends or destroy them or whatever, or even worse, and Mega Man's like, well, if you want to save him, this is probably the only course or recourse you got, especially if you're going to reset the world and none of this really happens. So, there's that. So there were those kind of possibilities when you get down to it. There were those kind of possibilities that they could have really worked with, but they didn't. They didn't work with them whatsoever, and to me, it was a missed opportunity. It's a major missed opportunity, and the same goes for the Metal Virus arc. We all know that when Ian Flynn did the Metal Virus arc in IDW, that it was the longest, most gargantuan arc in the short history currently of the comic itself. And even to the point that, as I've mentioned on many occasions, even Mega Beatman, Matt, if you will, was getting bored to death about it. He was getting, he was getting I wouldn't say frustrated, but he was getting flabbergasted of how long this story arc kept going and going until finally its conclusion. But to me, if you really want to make something more intriguing and interesting to the point that even someone as established as Mega Beatman is not going to be like, oh, I'm bored with this kind of deal, but not really say it, but you can tell in the tone of his reviews that he's kind of being like, enough's enough. To me, one of the best opportunities is you could have easily merged the characters together. You already have them covered in this goop that turned them into zombots, if you will. Why not have that goop suddenly decide, maybe at the behest of the Zete, maybe at the behest of Sterling, or even at the behest of Eggman, maybe mostly the Zete, have that goop basically totally engulf or start to rise up, but instead of like coming off them and freeing them, it rises up all over the body, encapsulates them, engulfs them, absorbs them completely into what looks like a big old blob, then have all those now blob captured, absorbed friends and Mobians, whatever you want to call them, zombots, flow towards each other into one big blob that forms into one big zombot. To me, if they would have done something creative like that, it would have made things more interesting. I mean, imagine seeing a panel where all of a sudden you see Shadow get engulfed by the metal virus that's infecting him. Imagine him getting engulfed by that into a big old blob, and he's flying towards the whatever direction the coming together as. Imagine Tangle in that situation. Imagine Vanilla in that situation. Imagine the Chaotix in that situation, or what's left of them. Imagine those kind of scenarios. And then all of a sudden, the result of them all merging together is this big old Zombot, and you kind of see maybe them floating about in the middle where they're like now speaking in one voice, going like, "We are now one. We are the Zombot monster masters. Who serve our masters? Who serve our masters? Zeti beep beep." Imagine if that could have been something they've done, and the abilities that maybe a combined Zombot monster would have had, like being able to morph or shapeshift its body. Even with those involved, in it floating about. To me, if Ian Flynn would have gone in that direction, just like he could have gone with the Worlds Collide deal and the Roboticized Masters, as I've said before, these are things that I think would have really picked up intrigue in the stories. Not saying Worlds Collide wasn't intriguing. It was more intriguing than what the Metal Virus was. I'll give you that. But if Ian Flynn really wanted people not to get bored to death of the Metal Virus and what was going on there, then the best scenario, in my opinion here, is to have gone in that direction. Because then all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, what is this? I didn't expect this. And you have the Zete being the ones that are controlling this Zombot, if you will, this now merged together Zombot with all the Zombot, friends, of Sonic and them floating in the middle and speaking in one voice. As if they're just one individual now, which technically they would be. That would have created a lot more intrigue. It would have created a lot more intrigue, if you will, down the line. It really would have. And I think honestly, and this is just my opinion, I think honestly, that would be right back. Sorry about that. It's just my mom letting her know I got the job and everything at Dollar Tree. But anyway, getting back to what I was saying. To me, if with the Metal Virus dragging it on as long as it did, basically, if he would have done something like that, if he would have had basically the Zete command that the Zombots merged together, in other words, you have that fluid, that liquid that covered and infected everybody, just engulfed them, absorbed them completely into like one big droplet blob droplet, I should say, and then all go like like this, towards the center, and they merge together into one big Zombot like monster under the control of the Zete, and they're all speaking in one voice and acting like they're just one individual, which technically they are. To me, that would have created a lot more attention. That would have created a lot more intrigue. That would have really gotten more people to be invested and to continuously reading the story, because they'd be wondering, okay, what the heck is this? What is going on? As I check something here for a second, okay. Just want to make sure the mic's on. But like I said, it would have kept people more intrigued and more invested, because they'd be wondering, what the heck is going on here? I don't understand it. I didn't see this coming. What's this about? And to me, it would have made things a lot more, tense and interesting for Sonic and for Tails and Amy and all of them, because they'd be like, okay, now what do we do? With the fact that the friends are, now this big old monster controlled by the Zete. How do they get the friends out of this? It would have made things more interesting, if you will. And to me, these are just, as I mentioned before, missed opportunities that he had. I mean, even believe it or not, with the Mecha Sally arc, he had a missed opportunity there. Here's the one thing about these kind of stories: no matter if the Sonic stories portrayed in the comics or published in comics, or other kind of stories that are very similar. If it looks like merging, fusing, combining, if you will, is one way to keep intrigue for people to be keep continuously be invested in a story, then to me this would be it's what I'm trying to say is basically, to me, it would have. This is one of those examples of where it really would have been utilized, and the Worlds Collide deal with the Roboticized Masters, the Metal Virus arc with the Zombots, and even the Mecha Sally arc are some prime examples. I mean, there was a hint. There was a panel in one of the universe arcs. I think it was the Egg Scrambled arc or whatever, where Eggman and his bosses are going up against Naugus and his sister. You know, basically the now rebooted Naugus and everything. And they show this panel with, you know, Sally, Mecha Sally, alongside Metal Sonic and all these metal versions of Tails and Knuckles alongside them. And I think even Shadow. And to me, I'm like, you have an opportunity there that you could have worked on. You want people to be invested in the story? You could have easily done something there, merge-wise. I mean, imagine this. Imagine this. You have Metal Sonic and Mecha Sally basically surrounded by team fighters, right? Like Sonic and all of them are getting ready to free her, right? You know, defeat them and get Sally, get her back, get her de-roboticized, right? If you're Ian Flynn and you really want to drive home how dark and intense and how serious this story arc is, and how far, from a story standpoint, Eggman has gone to modify and weaponize and basically ruin your friend, you know, especially if you're Sonic, the love of your life, then you basically have her and Metal Sonic both say something along the lines of initiate dock merger or initiating merger sequence, and then you have them merge together, and you have this big old conglomerate of maybe Mecha Sally's part of hers on him, and, you know, whatever. Something that looks like the metal version of Metal Overlord, whatever you want to call it. But it's a combination of, like, maybe, you know, Sally's hairstyle, her hair is like on top of Metal's head, if you will. And you have, you know, two eyes, like you have the red eyes and like the blue eyes surrounding it. You know, if you really want to drive, and then you maybe have all four arms coming out of this Metal Overlord-like body at once. And you have them speaking in one voice and referring to themselves as I, not we. You know, like I said with the Metal Virus, you know, idea that they could have gone with. And to me, if you're Ian Flynn, you really want to drive home that this is a serious situation to now, you know, and you want to now where you have pretty much in story the revelation that Eggman has gone so far to do this to your friend, that now that also he's basically added the capability of merger with Metal Sonic or any of the Metal Series bots into a single entity or a combined entity, to me would have really kept, you know, really would have kept anybody that was interested and invested in it more so than ever before, and even maybe grab the attentions, like let's say people like myself who weren't invested in it at first, you know, to open up the issue of where it was happening to see exactly what the heck is going on. The point is, the merging of these components in all these three story arcs is a missed opportunity by Ian Flynn and Evan Stanley, anybody else that was involved. Because again, you really want to keep people invested more so than you have them already, or you want to keep them from being bored out of their skull with the length of the story. You want to keep them invested, or you want to get people invested more so than they are in a story that they don't like or care for, more so than maybe the newer readers. Then adding in a merging, you know, twist, a merging plot twist, if you will, I think could have done wonders. I think could have done tremendous wonders overall for these stories. But that's just my opinion. Because again, the elements are there. You know, the elements are there. And all Ian Flynn and anybody else that was working on these stories had to do was drive that home. That's all they had to do. That's all they had to do. But what do you guys think? Do you think maybe I'm just grasping for straws here? What are your thoughts overall? Comment down below. Love to hear from each and every one of you. Like the video. Comment during the live chat during the premiere. Also check me out at patreon.com/bwroses to help donate there at the $1 or $3 tiers. Also check me out at Venmo if you want to help donate there. Also check me out at Teespring if you want to find some items there to, you know, consider as holiday Christmas gifts this year. You got some selections there. Also check me out at BW's Discussions and all your favorite audio podcast locations except for Pandora. So until next time, guys, let me know what your thoughts are. Do you think the merging plot twist, the combined, the fusion merging plot twist, could have added more to these stories or not? What are your thoughts? Let me know down below in a live chat during the premiere, and I'm out.